Yeah, we're live now. So this is going to be a very archaic at best live stream hangout, and people can join the chat, or if you're a member of the Orthogonal Devices forum, I put a link in there to where you can actually join this stream directly. And you know, if you got a mic or something, come on in here and you can ask questions or tell us your workflow, whatever. I'm Flux. We got Neil here. Hold on, I'm going to click on Neil. Hi, Neil. And if you're an ER-301 user, you've probably seen Neil's videos as well. He's done a tremendous service to the community by doing all sorts of videos that have really helped us all out. So thank you for that, Neil.
Yeah, no problem.
Yes.
So Neil is a sound designer and composer and does all that kind of good stuff. And we got Lee on here. What's up, Lee? And I would say you're a fairly long time user of the 301 as well, right?
Yeah, about a year and a half.
Okay, and you've actually done pretty much an entire album on it, right?
We did an EP. Really, it's like a half-hour project. Aaron and I, we first met at the Make Noise 10-year party. He got stuck here in Asheville. They gave him a hotel room, and he was like wanting to check out the ER-301. So I brought my case to the hotel room, and we saw what was up with that. And he ended up ordering one. And so after some planning, we ended up renting an Airbnb basically in the middle of the woods here in North Carolina. And over a week, basically, we made an EP together with the ER-301 and Eloquencer in a little tiny skiff.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
Yeah, so yeah, you have an interesting workflow with the 301 that we're going to be talking about as well, because hopefully you guys can teach me some stuff that will be pretty useful. And we got D Steel. Now you're the youngest user of the 301 group here.
Yes, I am.
Experience wise, I mean, you're probably way older than I am.
Nah, dude, in your life, not in your life.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm trying to make myself feel good. All right.
Nah, you're good.
Yeah. So
don't crack, baby.
Steele is also a sound designer and music producer, sound designer for MSX Audio and music producer for all kinds of good stuff, and also a touring drummer.
Yeah.
Yeah, about how long you been using the 301?
So I've had the 301 since November.
Okay. And I think.
Yeah, so I got mine a month after you. Remember? Because you bought yours and you were like obsessed with it, and I became obsessed with it, and then I was like, I'm just gonna buy it, and then from there, I didn't even have a case.
Yeah.
Go figure. But I love it.
I'm just my memory was working. I was like, did I get it in October? I think I got it in October, and like I usually can't remember that kind of stuff. But yeah, that shows you like what an impression it made on me. So, but yeah, so we all kind of have different workflows, and we all have different things that we tend to do inside the 301. So I thought it would be cool to have a live stream hangout where we can all kind of just get together and talk about like, oh, well, this is what I do. And you can say, well, you're stupid because you could do it this way. And then say, oh, okay, I should have known. And, you know, we can kind of go back and forth and talk about it. Well, you know, when the shoe fits. No,
okay, Grandpa.
Yeah, I hear you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch my camera over here first. And so we'll kind of get right into some topics that I thought would be interesting. So yeah, we should be able to see it. You guys can see my 301 now, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Back it up a little bit. Yeah, that's good.
Man.
One thing I was going to say, though, is the 301 is one of the few modules I can think of where you can approach your workflow from any number of angles, where most modules are sort of fixed in their architecture. Like, you know how to approach it every single time the same way. Where this thing, it's literally a blank slate every single time, which is what makes it so interesting, because you'll inspire yourself every time you go to use it and just discover something interesting.
Let me ask you guys a quick question first about how you have your 301 positioned in your rack. I am of the mindset that like I want my 301 as close to me as possible and in like the most comfortable position to program, because I'm doing a ton of stuff on it. So I don't want it like up in my rack, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. Excuse me.
He's
My
like,
fault, y'all.
God, Flux bores me.
Yeah, he caught me off guard with this call. I'll be honest. Let me just show you what I got going on. I guess if I can flip my camera around, because for me, it's the center of my rack, and it's really more of how I have my ER-301 patched that makes sense for me. You can kind of see here I got this nice braid happening, like between
it's great.
my Eloquencer and the ER-301, and it's kind of out of the way of the Make Noise CV bus, and yeah, it stays patched for months. Even when I unpatch it, I know how to patch it back up pretty quickly because it stays patched. I'm gonna have to alter this patch recently because the way that I'm doing beat sets these days with it, you can do a dual deck with the two channels. So the top channel's one beat and the bottom channel's another beat, and you can use a bipolar offset in order to beat match. And then you come down here to the faders, and you can cue with the performance mixer. Do filter tricks with the QMMG. For sampling, we got phonogenes, but on the inputs. But yeah, for me, the centerpiece of this whole entire case is the ER-301. It's essential. That's the one module. Oh, thanks. Appreciate that. I'm very fortunate. I was like one of the last ones to get it.
Now here's a question:
Did these guys missed out on it?
Did you have those phonogenes before the 301, or did you buy them after? Like, do you feel like you still need them as much with all the built-in double stuff, or?
Yeah, actually, so I started working at Make Noise in 2013, and that was about the time that I actually was introduced to the phonogenes, and I just loved the way it sounded, and it sounded to me like the SP1200. And at the time, there were SP1200s that were like in the $5,000 range on reverb. These days I've seen them $6,000 broken. And that doesn't make any sense to me. But I love boom bap. And so I felt like, and I had my MPC 4000 and my Moog Voyager XL because my wife worked at Moog. She was there about 5 years at that time. And I fell in love with that sound and stuff, but I just felt like the Eurorack was the future. Her brother is Dallas Fee. He helped start Vimeo, and like 10 years ago was the first time I ever saw Eurorack synth, and he's the one that introduced me to Tony in like 2010-ish. I'm going all over the place timeline-wise, but anyway, the phonogene is what really got me to starting working at Make Noise. I love the way it sounds. I knew it was a granular instrument, but I was like convinced that there was some way that I could make beats with this thing, and so I got my first one, and then realized that I wanted a second one for stereo, so that I could do one for left channel audio, one for right, and then really get to play with the sample rate tricks and stuff using Varispeed, because it's really nice. You get all this weird aliasing, and the left side will go out of phase with the right side because it just the nature of the way that you're hitting these buttons. Like, and even then the playback is just always going to have one like chasing the other kind of feel. But it's pleasing to just sit back for like a half an hour and listen to it. Or just put it in mono and just hear, capture all those effects. But yeah, that's how I was making beats for a long time, was just the phonogenes, and I had pressure points too, and would sample from vinyl or my phone. And that's kind of how I got started in Eurorack. I just thought, I've always thought that this is the future of hip hop for a lot of reasons, or at least maybe not hip hop in general, but for me, boom bap anyway, like that sound.
Yeah. So ER-301 was my first module, and I basically got bored of keyboard synthesizers and keyboard samplers and all that other stuff, and I was like, "Hey Ken, what should I get?" And he's like, "Get the ER-301." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's $900." I remember going onto the orthogonal website, and when I first went, I couldn't even order it because the orders were closed. I was just like, what is going on? What is this thing? Is this like the cool? It made me feel like when I lived in Portland and there was like a donut shop that would sell out of like a specific donut.
It was the hype.
Yeah, I'm like, yo, what's the heck? Like, I want this thing. So the more and more I would see Ken using it and the more I would watch your videos and all the stuff you could do with it, I'm like, wait, this module can be whatever I want it to be. And I was like, yeah, this has to be my first one. I have to have this. First of all, it costs more than any of the other modules. And I just have to make sure that if I'm going to get a module, I'll get the most expensive one first and then trickle down financially. I'm like, it's over. My wife got upset with me for a $900 purchase. Now she won't get upset with me for a $700 purchase.
There you go.
I'm like, hey, I just took the big one out the way, you know, so.
It's made its money back already. So.
Yeah. So this is my current setup. Hold on. I have three parts of my setup.
God, so cool. So cool.
This is this skiff down here is ER-301 front and center. Flux is one, Pamela's new workout. So this is like gate and sequencing effects. I have a gate delay here because this sequencer doesn't have any delay and I can't get swing in my life without gate delays. And then up here is the assimilator and the Varigate 8 Plus that I sequence all this stuff together with. And over here is a bunch of stuff that I might be getting rid of some of the stuff soon because the ER-301 just does it better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like right now I'm debating about selling my Nebula too. Because I could do that in the ER-301.
Yeah, I remember for me, because I had the Nebula as well, like the version 1 of it.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was the thing. Like I wanted something that could do that sort of melodyne-y kind of pitch time, you know, independent of each other.
Yeah.
And as soon as the grains came out on the 301, I was like, okay, gone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool, but I mean, the 301's cleaner, and if I can make it dirty, I can run it through something. Whereas the Nebula just always had a bit of a dirty, kind of gungy kind of.
But that's what I like about the Nebula.
Yeah, but you can take a clean signal on the 301 and then distort it with another module if you need to. But otherwise, it's clean, and you can also do stereo. So
no, definitely. So, and that's what I'm saying. It's like I have modules here that I'm looking at, and every day that I spend time with the module and spend time talking to Lee and with Ken, I'm regretting decisions that I made of getting certain modules. I'm like, man.
But you know what? That's just part of doing Eurorack. There's always you're gonna buy something and be like, oh wait.
Yeah.
I mean, the beautiful thing about Eurorack though is just that, you know, as you add one little module, it's like your whole synthesizer becomes a new synthesizer again, you know. So that's always cool to me. And if you have friends who buy the wrong modules, sometimes you come up on modules for cheap. What up, Steel? So I'll show you what I'm working with real quick. I'm not going to too much. So this is my rack brute case. And the Fluxus one, originally I had it in a 3U rack brute, and then I just moved it to the 6U. Because I wanted to have some more funk. So I have this little fader here, which is just a nice handy control, and I keep it like right where my thumb is going to be, you know, and this is all sitting directly in front of a much larger rack, which goes up this way. So I can kind of patch into other things, but the primary thing is that I keep this directly in front of me. So I have from Delptronics the WeChuck module, which was just put in here. So
so good.
yeah, it's just fun, man. Like you can do lots of really goofy stuff, and I really wanted a nice XY control, like a joystick or something, but I didn't want to give up the space for it, so I don't have to give up the space for it. I have a WeChuck, you know, and I can do it either physically like this, or I can do it with this. And you got the buttons for triggering things, which I'm going to force Lee to talk about in a little while.
I forgot to mention, like, this is such a huge part of my setup. Like,
hold on, let me click on it so people can see what you're talking about. Okay, there you go.
Having some kind of controller to interface your equipment with, or your equipment, your case with, is huge. Not only for me in terms of like recording and using pedal loopers and managing it with that, but using the offsets to generate stuff. And for live performance, it's just so much fun because these things are designed to be thrown at a sibling, you know, like across the room. So it's got like a 20-foot cable, and just great to like dance around with, to like have fun with, and still have so much control over like the samples. And yeah, it's just fun.
I love how you said it was designed to be thrown across the room. That's great.
That's what we did with them.
301 primary sequencer here is the Fluxus one, which in my opinion it just pairs perfectly with this thing. So I always keep at least one of the channels is always kind of set up to it, and then depending on what I do, I'll vary the other channels. So you know, I try to keep as short of cables as possible on it too, so that it's easier to trace out. To the right of that, I have a let me turn this. So I have the manual gates, which is cool for if I have like samplers or whatever that need button triggering, that sort of thing. So I have manual gates there, and then I have a Polaris, which, to be perfectly honest with you, I had the Polaris in my drum rack, but it was too susceptible to noise. So I pulled it out of there and I put it in here. I haven't really used it in this rack setup yet. Like I just redid this whole rack pretty recently, so I haven't even had a chance to try it with this setup yet, but hopefully it'll be a little bit quieter than it was in my drum rack. Up top I have a phonogene, which you know, that's primarily going to be for like, you know, kind of warping samples in real time with hands-on stuff and kind of getting weirdness. And then my envision is to be doing a lot of feedback looper type stuff between it and the 301. Maths for everything that maths is. The bends, which I highly recommend the bends, because not only is it 4 offset knobs that I can use as controllers for the 301, but it's also 6 Vactrols. So you can do all kinds of really cool stuff with it, like pinging between 2 different controls while getting that Vactrol response on it is really cool. And, you know, you can just do some awesome stuff with it. Then Rossum Evolution filter, which is the best sounding ladder filter out there, in my opinion. It just sounds amazing. I wish it was spaced out a little bit wider, but sound-wise, it's hard to beat that ladder filter. And for high pass filtering, I can just go back to the 301, but that's like my one gripe, is that they didn't do high pass and band pass on it also, but whatever. And then I have a Black Hole DSP version 1 with the expansion ROM in it. And then the Animodule Tranimodule, and this does triple duty for me. So it can be a final output mixer. So I get 2 channels of final output. But then I also had the line input, which, you know, it can boost to other things, which I don't really need with the 301 in there. But then it also has the speaker output, because a lot of times I'll take this case and I actually power it from a battery pack. I have a nice battery pack that I can power this from. So I'll sit up on the couch and just rock with it. And it also acts as distortion. So that's cool too. So that's my main 301 setup.
That's dope.
All right. So we'll zoom in a bit here. And so I guess the first thing I'm going to talk about is samplers in the 301, because to me that's a major part of it. Oh, they're saying my voice is going in and out. Hopefully it's not going in and out now. Is it okay now?
Yeah, it's good now. You were just probably stepping away from the microphone.
Yeah, this thing's very you know, I don't have a ton of gain going on here or compression, so all right, yeah, so as far as the samplers are concerned on this thing, I've been doing a lot of lo-fi samplers with it, creating my own bit rate reduction and sample rate reduction with samplers. And oh, and yeah, Neil, can I see like where your main 301 is set up?
Yeah, I'm gonna reposition it actually, but it's sort of, hold on, it's sort of near the hands-on area where my stuff is. It's sort of like right in the middle of my primary case that has like all the effects and the mixing and stuff. So it's really close by to my performance mixer and like a lot of stereo effects. Can you see? I don't know if you can see that stuff. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Can't really see what I'm looking at, or what I'm pointing at. But yeah, like basically this part of the case is more like traditional mixing. The lower bit's all hands-on control. So I have a bunch of like light strips and joysticks and step sequencers, and that all it's all in the perfect spot to put to 301 and control it. I usually I'm either using it as a stereo processor to mangle stuff that I'm doing elsewhere, or it's sort of half and half. It's like either that or I'm generating weird stuff from the 301 directly and then processing it through additional stuff. Sometimes re-recording it back in, but most of the time firing it back to my computer and recording it there. Nice. And then I build on my contact patches and stuff. So it's sort of a multi-step process.
That's kind of how I've been using the 301. I've been processing a lot of things through it and then throwing it into like my samplers, like externally from the 301, because it's just a great device to like mangle stuff with.
Yeah, one thing I've had to get in the habit of doing is I just have to remember if I'm screwing around with stuff to just have the 6-track recorder recording my output. Because that's, you sort of like just create weird sounds on the fly, and then you have it, and then you can take that and load it back. You can trim it and then put it back into a sampler, and then you have all this amazing source material. Kind of reminds me of like, does anybody remember the Phantom S?
Yeah. And it had
that go back sampler for like the last 30 seconds. I feel like the 6-track recorder is like that. Like you can go back in and be like, oh, that cool thing, and then just grab that little thing. And
I haven't even tried the 6-track recorder.
I haven't either.
Well,
I
haven't tried it yet.
Hot tip.
It's cool. The thing about 6-track, I think for me, I don't know, it's managing all the different wave files. And if you're trying to do, depending on what you're trying to do, you'd want it to be like bundled, but like in stereo files. That's the other thing, is if you try to record in stereo, at least that's the way it used to work. Like it would save the left channel separately from right channel.
Oh, that's cool.
I have a pedal looper that's called NES looper that's got a custom length that's like 2 minutes long. So that's generally enough time for me to capture stuff. And I just tuck it right on the end of wherever I'm trying to record. And sometimes it'll be within, like if I want to just record the bass line or just record the drums, like I'll tuck it inside of a mixer channel and just grab that, but then saving it to a buffer from there. But still the same deal, like all of my files are like, every beat is 1 dot wave, 2 dot wave, 3 dot wave. I'm terrible at like actually saying these are the drums.
That house tuning can be tricky. The other cool thing you can do too is you can also use the 6-track recorder to record CV. So sometimes I'll record I'll record my external controls coming in, and then you can take that, put it into a sample player, and use that as a complex CV source to mod something else. So it's just like rabbit hole territory, right?
Totally.
Yeah, that's wild.
And then on top of that, you can do weird things like throw a micro delay or something at the end, so you can do like those gate delays and that kind of thing on an actual sample player, and you can do some weird stuff with that.
Sometimes I take. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say sometimes I'll record some like sort of just some complex movements, and then I'll have a sample player act as like a complex ADSR.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you adjust the speed and you adjust, you put a slew on it or whatever, you get these like really crazy envelopes.
Oh, yeah. Because you could be triggering it, right? So you could be triggering it on each
exactly
fires. Yeah, I see what you're. Now, are you using that to modulate internally, or are you also talking about external to your?
Well, you can't output. It's not DC coupled.
Well, that's what I was getting at. Yeah, because I mean, you can output, control voltage, but it's going to be slew.
Yeah, it's kind of messed up. Like I've been successfully been able to like control, like to send out sort of rough gate signals to trigger other things, but you really have to mangle a sound for it to.
Yeah, the gate stuff you can certainly do, because at very least you can send it to like a logic module or a buffer module to that effect, and certainly get around it that way. But when it comes to pitch, not so much. When it comes to slow envelopes, not so much. But
you might be able to. Well, yeah, I was thinking you might be able to like rectify it and then offset it downwards, but once you go below a certain point, the CV is just not going to be there. It's just
exactly. And that's. There's all these things that I'm like, man, it does this, it does that, it does this. And then I remember, like, I'm like, yeah, we're at 0.4. Like, because there are things that I would like to see in the future. Like, I would like to see more powerful processor on the back of it, and I would like to see an expansion module just for DC. Like, I would love to see that kind of stuff.
What I'm thinking how that rear data port might be able to be used for that, because so far isn't it like the teletype and stuff, it's sending data to it? Like, I don't know if the 301 can send data back.
I mean, well, from what Brian said on the forum, it sounds like this is all stuff that is certainly a possibility in the future. But my point was more that, like, we're at 0.4, and there's still a lot on the table as far as what's to be coming. Like, if you look at the wiki, like, there's a lot on there that's not in here yet that he's like, yeah, I want to do all of this. And I have zero reason to believe that he won't do it, because the updates have been coming, and like he's dude's been kicking butt on it.
No, he's on it, and it's amazing because, like, sometimes people will complain, and it's like, you step back and you look at what this thing does, and it's like one guy who's done everything.
Right.
Not poorly implemented. Like, when he releases something, it's already kind of awesome. And it's still one guy doing it. So it's like, I wish there was, I told him once, I was like, I wish there was like 5 of you working at Apple to get Logic fixed,
Yeah, really.
Because, like, there's been times on the forum where we'll find a bug, and he's like, I mean, this doesn't happen every time, but he'll be like, yeah, I'll have a bug update like in like 4 hours. I'm like, what? Like,
yeah, right.
Like, where else does that happen?
Yeah, the other thing about that is just that, because it's one guy, that's one thing, but he outright says before you buy it, this is a beta. Like, he doesn't hide it. He doesn't try to pull that, oh yeah, like, these features are coming and this is a complete product and buy it. No, like, he tells you beforehand, if you're uncomfortable with being with it being a beta, then don't buy it. Like, this is a beta. And I think that's super commendable, because I can look at other products that are of similar ilk and be like, okay, I'm not buying that thing because the person didn't say it was a beta yet. A lot of things that aren't there scream beta.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, there's certain things like that do that to me. So, I haven't supported those other products, but this one I felt comfortable doing that, even though it's been out as a beta for almost 2 years, right?
Yeah, I think we crossed. The forum crossed 2 years, like a week or so ago.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah,
I think I've had my 301 for almost 2.5 years though, because I got it in like November. I have serial number 7, so it was like November.
Yeah, but you also have a flux capacitor.
I do have a flux capacitor. I feel like you should have a flux capacitor of all people.
I've told my wife as much.
Yeah, why don't you have a flux capacitor, Ken?
Because I'm broke.
I just did the math, and actually that was a lie. I haven't had it a year and a half. I've only had it like 11 months, I think. I got it like May. I have to check. I think it was like May of last year, so not even a year yet.
Oh,
is that right? No.
Hold on a second. Ken, this is
2017. 2017.
Flux capacitor.
There it is. You see it? Yeah, that's. Oh, man. And hold on. Show the time device. The date implementation. This is so dope.
The time drifts though, but like.
Oh my god. The level that I want at.
That's awesome.
That is wild.
Yeah.
Basically, I spend so much time in here that I'm just like, I need a time machine to get my life back.
Yeah.
So what I'm gonna let me you know what, I'm gonna let you guys talk for a second while I'm setting something up, because I want to demonstrate something, but I don't want to irritate you guys. So you guys can continue talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah.
Neil, I have a question.
Yeah.
I was asking Lee about this earlier, like traditional like audio effects in the ER-301. I was asking him about like compressors and like things of that nature in the ER-301. That's something that I really don't see in there. I know you can build them.
Yeah, it's not quite there yet. I mean, I think from my understanding, like talking to Brian, I believe he's trying to get the underbelly and like just the whole architecture finalized before he opens the door for, like, right now there's a middle layer sort of open, but there's supposed to be another layer where people can like code.
Yeah.
And we'll start seeing like the really specific kind of things that aren't like building blocks added on together, but like an actual processing thing that does that exact task.
Oh no, definitely. I'm excited about it. Like every day we talk about it, we're just all discovering new things in conversation. Lee will be like, "Hey, did you know you could do this?" And I'm like, "Oh man, now I want to sell 3 more modules."
The one cool thing about it is because it doesn't have all those things, like, I don't know, for me anyway, I'll be like, oh, I wonder if I can actually implement whatever, like X. And then spend like 20 minutes trying to build something that does it. And I might not get there all the time, but I'll come up with something else completely interesting.
Yeah.
And then you learn the module better, and you just come up with another way to like just approach a problem. And that's sort of how those videos started. I started making those videos, and I just kept discovering all these things, and then yeah, it was sort of a rabbit hole from there.
So how was the? So I noticed that you had the ER-101 next to your ER-301.
Yeah, I have the 101, 102 beside it. Yeah, I think those are like early runs too. I think one of them was like serial number 4.
Oh man!
Yeah.
But the funny thing is, like with Brian's stuff, like I remember when his site didn't have a forum or anything, and it just had those modules there. I was like, what are those? I just want them. And then I got them, and I ended up loving it. And the same with the 301. Like, I just remember seeing that Vimeo video of just dialogue being manipulated, and like, I literally bought it because I was like, I don't know exactly what this will be able to do, but the screen scrolls so smoothly that it has to. Like, I saw that display, and I was like, sold.
That's one of the things that I was sold on, the screen.
And the encoder too, man. Once I actually got that, I mean, I didn't get a chance to feel it before, but like that thing would have sold me. Like, it feels so nice. It's the nicest knob in Eurorack, in my opinion, man.
But I guess going back and answering your question, so yeah, I mean, the 101 anyway was one of the earliest sequencers I bought. So I've had that for a long time. I don't use it all the time now. I mainly sequence from the computer at this point because I have to recall stuff constantly. Yeah. But I still love it for just, you know, I'm not too sure if he purposely tied them in together with like the, you know, there's 4 sets of CV outs, and there's 4 on the 301, but it sort of complements in a nice way. So sometimes I use it just to create like cool patterns if I'm zoning out, or if I'm traveling somewhere, I'll have, or if I'm away, I'll take my KB37, take the 101, 102, and 301, and bring those with me, and then I just have a fun sort of palette of discovery, you know?
That's great. Yeah, we've in our Marco Polo group, we've all been talking about the 101 for at least a week. Well, we've been talking about different sequencers for a week, but that one keeps coming up.
Yeah, there's I forget his name offhand, but he recently, well, maybe like 2 or 3 months ago, he created a new, you know, sort of getting started with the 101 sequencer, and it's pretty in depth and it's really good. But I think you'd be able to find it on the forum, but
that's actually a good friend of ours. He's in our Marco Polo, and that's Ali the architect. So
those videos are
a good friend of ours. So, and just so people know, I always do this. I always shout it out, even though like I'm under no obligation to do so. But I want people to know about it as much as possible because it's super useful, and I don't ever want to see this app go away. So let me show you this. This is, and it's going to be all blown out. I was hoping it would correct itself, but not so much. Anyway, it's called Marco Polo, and it's like, so it's like a hybrid between text messaging and video chat. And so essentially, and group video chat. So like, let's say you have 4 friends and you're all on different coasts, right? And, so you're talking to each other. If you open up the app, right, and we all have the app open at the same time, and I'm talking into it, the video will be live fed to everyone, right? So we can all be watching it live. But if let's say you're not there, you're asleep, right? You can come back later, and it'll be, those videos are saved almost like a text message.
Oh, amazing. Nice.
You're there, so you can scroll through and you can watch them on your own time. You can also text on here as well. You can do reactions, that kind of thing. So it's just a really, really useful way for guys like us, where like our friends are all over the world, to stay like in live communication and video communication that's, you know, at different time zones really easily. So Marco Polo, it's on Android and iPhone, and it's super good for staying in contact with your friends. So I try to tell everybody.
Speaking of time zones, where is everybody anyway? I'm in Toronto.
I'm in New Jersey.
Okay.
I'm in Asheville, North Carolina.
And I am in Delaware, just south of Philly. So I think I have this set up. We're gonna see. Let me see if I can switch my camera real quick. And the patch is not going to be musically amazing, but that's not really what it's about. Like I'm just trying to show what I'm.
It's not going to be musically amazing.
I never answered Neil's question earlier all the way about do I think that the phonogenes are redundant now within the ER-301 environment. And the reason I would say no would be because for live performance and beat making and stuff, if I were going to make beats from scratch, the phonogenes are so fast.
Oh, it's just right? They're purpose.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. They're purpose built, and what you can do is you can loop on the fly. So like if you hit record in time with this sample material, if it's a turntable, like if you got 45s on a little turntable, and you start and stop with record, basically you crossfade with the live to loop, and then it's in time with the audio, and so it goes from you're like crossfading from the record to the loop, and then from there you can like start chopping, and then if you have a second one, you can like record the contents of the second one, into the next one, and just keep building. And so that part makes it really nice.
Nice.
I use mine primarily as like just a fun sound source to mangle and mess with. I really like how the phonogene sounds on a kind of vintage sampler level. Like it does have kind of a similar to SP1200 kind of vibe to it. So that's why I keep it there. Like I love running drums and samples through it and just slowing things down, and it instantly does that kind of weird sound that I like. So that's kind of why I mess with it.
Totally.
And I also like, dude, that broken echo tape mode. I use that a ton. So which you can absolutely do that in the 301. But yeah, it's just an extra thing in the case, and those guys convinced me to put it in there, so it's in there.
The other thing I love gene shift too. That's like one of my favorites. And time stretching is so easy because you have the end of cycle or end of splice rather LED, which is the end of gene LED when you increase the gene size, which actually decreases the gene size when you increase the knob. But anyway, so then it starts blinking this yellow light, and when you're feeding in a gate, like you're to time stretch something, you just like basically wait till that light comes off. I don't know, super useful for like time stretching stuff really, really quickly on a granular level, because it's purpose built.
Okay, so let me I'll dive into this a little bit, and then you guys can kind of talk about what you do with samplers and whatnot. So let's check this out. And to answer quantum space, yeah, these videos stay up on my channel. Most live streams I keep up on my channel, unless they're really like just a test, and this one is gonna stay up. So yeah, if you bounce out of here, you can definitely catch up later. And a nice thing about long form YouTube streams is that if you watch them, like let's say you're just listening or whatever, and you're driving down the road, you can stop it, go in the house, do whatever, and then if you come back, get on your commute the next day, and you go to the same video, it'll pick up where you left off. So you don't have to worry about that. Like that's it. It's kind of like a podcast in that same way. That's why I kind of stopped trying to convert all my videos into audio podcasts, because that's tedious for someone who's busy. So anyway, the first thing I want to show about this is my sidechain lo-fi sampler. There's still a few things that I need to clean up, but
yeah, can we get zoomed in on the actual screen, because we can barely read that. I think.
Let me try and zoom in a bit. Yeah. Where am I at? Here we are.
Because I think at this point we know what the interface is.
How dare you? You know.
It's like at this point.
But let me see what the good stuff is. What's under the hood there, Ken?
Yeah. Can you see that okay?
Yeah.
Is that fairly decent?
Yeah.
Yes, perfect. Thanks.
Just move that yellow cable, though. We can't see something.
All right. So.
Oh, yeah. The cable's a little bit in the way there. But
well, you're going to have to deal with that. It's a modular. This is modular life right here. So, yeah, I did do this chat kind of haphazardly, so I could have set up more, but I didn't. So I'm going to provide this one on the forum for people. I'll upload it afterwards. And I'll probably be cleaning up a lot of things that we'll discuss, but this is the top level. I just let the ER-301 name it, so it's called Early Error. And so we have a gate, which is pretty obvious. We've got our slice, which I have volt per octave slicing on here. We've got a speed, which is assignable here. Then we have sample rate and bit depth, and then side. And the side is side chaining, right? So the idea here is that you can side chain your audio output of the module to your sample rate and your bit depth. And the idea is that like when a kick hits, it's going to get super crunchy and, you know, that kind of thing. You know, kicks and snares are going to get really crunchy with it, that kind of idea. So we'll play it. Let me turn this up and make sure that I'm getting levels here. Yeah. You can hear that, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I select sample rate, we could drop it down. And a nice thing about this is in the 301, you can choose what sort of interpolation you have. So for this, I'm basically using none, like drop sample, which is just like an SP12. So you can get that really grimy sound, or you can go to linear, or you can go to second order. So you can make it as clean or as dirty of a sampler as you want, which is pretty cool. And then, of course, bit depth is here, so we'll do this. And I'll show how this is all built, so we can drop this down. And I'll actually bring this up. So basically, all you're really hearing is noise floor is raising up a bit, and then I'm going to select this a bit. Okay, so you get the idea on that. And then we have our side chain, right? And we can raise and lower that. Now, right now, the way I have it set up is that side chaining is muted. I think when I upload it, I won't have it muted because it'll probably cause too much confusion. So I'm going to run through what the layers are on this, right? So we have a variable speed sample player. We've got our speed here, our slice, you know, all that good stuff. Everything's mapped to top layer controls, and thank you to Neil for kind of showing me the way on that. Once he showed me like that little bit about how to do top layer controls, I was off to the races. I was like, oh, this is so great.
That's great.
So here's sample rate and bit rate. Now, the way that I did sample rate is very, very basic and very easy. Sample rate is just a sample and hold. And then the trigger input, I'm going to go inside of that. Hopefully you guys can see this somewhat well. So the trigger, we're inside the trigger, and it's a sine wave oscillator. And we have control over the pitch of it, and that's all on the top level. So it's just basically a sample rate, sample and hold with a sine oscillator inside of it that's controlled at the top level. Does that make sense?
I have a question for you. So because I ran into this before, but I haven't tested it recently. But is your top value a max of 20K? Because that would give you a bandwidth of 10 kilohertz, right?
Yes, exactly. So Nyquist would mean that that would be at 10K.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember since like the latest update. Now that we can change the ceilings of values and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Have you tried going higher?
I have not tried going higher. I don't think that you can with the oscillator though. Let me go back in that real quick and we'll explore that together. But I don't think the oscillator will go.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Okay.
So
you probably stopped it that way for a reason.
Here, edit controls, and then
yeah, I don't think you can even
change it. It would be your F0. It'd be your F0, which is your frequency control. And that's grayed out, so I don't think you can actually do that.
Yeah, I wonder if he did that just to save CPU cycles or something. Who knows?
Yeah, and I mean, in truth, like it sounds cool that way. Like going, you know, at that rate, you don't really hear much sample rate reduction. It's when you get down to like 11K, because even, and this is for like a lot of like, especially the hip hop and house guys that are into like SP1200 and aliasing of vintage.
More lo-fi anyway, so.
What's that?
Like the frequencies are.
What I'm getting to with that what I'm getting to on that is for the lo-fi sampler people that are way into that kind of stuff. If you're thinking, oh well, the SP samples at 2604, right? I think it's 2604. You know, that's not as high as that, and that's not going to be as true. Well, to an extent, that's right, except you're forgetting that whenever you're using a vintage sampler to get that aliasing sound, you're not leaving the pitch stagnant, you're dropping the pitch. And when you drop the pitch, you're effectively dropping the sample rate.
Right.
So
Yeah.
so you're really going to be below that anyway. You're probably closer to like 8K,
Right.
somewhere between 8 and 11K. So you have that, if you leave it at 20K and your Nyquist is at 10K, my hearing personally only goes up to like 16K. So, it's kind of a non-issue is basically what I'm getting at. So anyway, that's how sample rate is done. It's a sample and hold circuit with a sine wave oscillator in it, and it gives you sample and hold. Now the bit rate, this got me really excited, and this is exactly what you were just talking about. So the bit rate is a quantizer, right? And this will allow you to do bit rate reduction. But what's really cool about this is that the original quantizer only gave you, I want to say 256 levels max. But now that you can edit controls, you can go all the way on up to whatever the heck you want. And I was able to go inside of this, and let me see if I can kind of show this real quick. I'll bring it on up. And I did 4,960, which is 12-bit. So at top level, it's a 12-bit sampler. And to be very frank, again, you really don't hear the bit rate stuff until you get far lower. So when you're around like 64 and whatnot, that's where you're really hearing it get grimy and grunged up. And that can kind of speak to if you have a vintage sampler and you do like the sample really quiet trick and then normalize. That's a pretty common trick from the old days where if you sample into it really quietly, you normalize it, you get that grunge of a lower bit rate. So that's kind of what that will allow you to emulate.
And I mean, you could go in there if you wanted to, and you could tweak. Now we can do it in 0.4, where you could tweak the encoder intervals. So you could skim up and down those values in bigger chunks if you really wanted to.
Yeah, and that's some of the refining stuff that I'm still working on. I've done a little bit of it. So like you'll see that it says 12 on there, and that's just kind of to remind me at top level it's 12-bit.
Right.
But the way that it drops pretty significantly quickly. It's not 100% accurate to what the bit depth actually is.
But it doesn't need to be, right? I mean, it's
yeah, but I did try to kind of mess with that and try to hone that in so that I could make it. I have to figure out the exact math to divide it up so that when you scale it down, it'll show actual bit reduction,
right.
As opposed to just an arbitrary number. It's an approximation at this point. We'll put it that way. Because really, like when I get down to like 4-bit, that's like here's where
4-bit sounds great.
Yeah,
it's like
I've got the 2 HP freeze modules that sample in 4-bit live. Those are nice.
So
get 2 of those.
Let me go inside here real quick. So if I go here, I have to remember where I put it now. Oh, here we go. So here, so on the side chain, it's just the input of the varispeed player and then an envelope follower, and I gave it 30 millisecond attack, 110 out. And the idea on that is really just to give it an envelope to a smooth response to the side chaining, as opposed to making it really kind of it would just sound noisy if I didn't have the envelope follower in my opinion. It would just be janky. So let me see if I can't find my stuff real quick. I'm hoping that I saved the correct one too. So or open the correct one, I should say. So we'll do, I believe it's here. Go inside. I thought I had it there. Maybe not. Go inside here. Oh, here it is. Sidechain input. So I have that muted. I'll unmute that. So that's for the bit rate. And I hope I didn't accidentally delete it. I must have accidentally deleted it. So we'll do. Oh wait, no, here it is. Yeah, I'll unmute that. So now I have sidechaining unmuted for both bitrate and sample rate. So when I hit play, the more sidechaining I give it, we should be able to get a nice. Actually, I'll leave this up for a second. There we go. You're gonna want to go negative with that so that it's dropping the sample rate, because I can do it bipolar. So the idea was that maybe you want to start really gritty and make it go hi-fi for the hits. So that's why I made that bipolar. So if you start hi-fi, go negative. So it gets kind of video gamey and cool.
And one thing you could do is, if in your sidechain section,
Yep.
if you add a VCA at the end of your, like within that mixer unit you had, you could then have a top level control right here, like a toggle on and off that turns that VCA on and off. So you have a sidechain on and off button.
That's kind of what I was thinking. You're talking about inside the actual sidechain control?
Yeah, if you put a VCA right on the end and then you control that on and off state on
as a toggle.
Yeah, and then you'd have it like right there if you want it or not.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
So what you're talking about, and I'm just going to show this for people watching the stream, because some people will have a 301, some people won't, but people are probably going to be interested in how the build process is. So I figure I might as well kind of show this kind of stuff right now.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go into category, right? And we'll do.
Go
ahead.
Nothing. I'm just saying this is that's a really cool trick, man.
Yeah. So I believe 0 is going to be off, and then toggle is just going to bring that up.
Yeah. So you got to make sure your gain is
it should be 0 and then to 1, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then you have your pass through kind of on and off.
So to add a top layer control, because we're going to need a top layer control to control this VCA, right? You're going to go to the start of your custom unit, go here, edit controls, and we're going to do, it would be a gate control, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, just making sure. So, and I'm going to name it real quick just so I don't forget, because whiskey. So we'll do, we'll call it,
like SC or like
how dare you? We'll do SC.
I don't know.
And then we'll do
S chain.
CON.
SCOM.
I'm not gonna name it like the folder I did earlier.
Our custom unit in the woods had a similar deal where we had a gate that would turn on and off effects. That was kind of the secret sauce to some of the beats when we were trying to add something special. It's like you just find a parameter you want to control, add it to the custom unit, and just toggle it with one of the gates.
Dude, I still bump that chalet tape all the time, man.
Oh,
we're gonna do this as a toggle. So here you can select output mode, and it'll be toggle, and then invert out.
I'd say no, because you want on to be voltage high. So
exactly. So that should be good. And then
you should probably show new users how you can move that control.
Oh yeah. I should have done that. I didn't even mean for it to be there anyway.
So careless.
I know, right? So you're gonna highlight your control, and then here, I don't know if you guys can see well. It says hold to move. I'm pressing that down, and then wee.
Really, Ken? We?
That's how we're doing.
No, that was the 301 making that sound. That's
called sound design. That's actually Neil's gonna use that for Bravest Warriors later.
Yeah. Here we go.
That's all you're singing. So
I can't believe I got away with that. That was crazy.
I love that stuff, man. By the way, like that stuff is so hilarious to me. I'm like, there's Neil singing a song. Okay,
so, cat bug over here.
Here we have our top layer control, which I'll probably rename it a bit more because you can't. It's just gonna say probably on off. It's right next to side chain, so.
It says SE off. What is it?
It's Soof.
Soof.
It's scoffing at fools.
Scoff.
Right. So we're gonna go inside here Actually, no, we're going to go inside sidechain right here.
Not wrong one.
To the VCA level. We're going to go here.
Yeah.
We're going to select it. And then we're going to go to our locals, which is new to the 0.4 update, I believe, right?
This is what I was kind of hoping you'd show everybody, by the way.
I still don't understand this part here. I'm still...
Okay.
The map menu, how it's all laid out.
Okay, so let me just go back real quick so that people can see what I just did. So sidechain, right? I'm going inside of that. Here's the linear unipolar VCA. And then I'm highlighting on level. I'm going to go inside of that. And then when you select where it's going to be controlled from, you get your inputs. In the lower menu here, it says jacks or local. You're going to select local. And now you're on...
No, I know. This is what I'm talking about right here. This screen, you see the map screen? This is what I was hoping that you would map out earlier on. Yeah, the scope view
is amazing. And yeah, I'll show you that a little bit in more detail in a second.
Okay. But, yeah. Go ahead and assign the input.
You want to highlight to the top of this, right? Like you don't want to highlight this G1 here. You want to highlight the top. So we're gonna get that and hit enter. And so we're good on that. And the gain on that should just be 1, right?
Exactly. So then it's like a 1-to-1.
0.1 or 1? Mm-hmm. Does that matter?
Sorry?
Should it be 0.1 or 1? I don't know if that matters.
I think it's 1.
1.
Okay. So
but you know what? It's because you don't want it to affect the level coming through. You want it to be like sort of nominal. So it should be 1-to-1.
Yeah. Okay. So we have that on 1. Now I'm going to go back up. And let me go back to this sidechain control. So this is a top layer control, and I need to change the gate because for some reason I set it to G1. I don't know how that got set like that. So I'm going to change my gate control, and I'm actually going to let's trigger that right from my Wii.
Nunchuck. Yeah.
So we'll do where are we at? What button is this? This is
Don't forget to get rid of all these assignments when you upload it though. That's a custom.
Yeah. Well, no, that's the cool
thing. What the hell?
The cool thing about these top layer controls is that you can easily assign everything because it's all.
Yeah, I know.
So you just walk down the line, assign your top layer controls, and you're good. So we'll do this to C2, and right here, C2.
Nunchuck it.
I don't know if you guys can see it. It's right here.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm triggering a sound though.
Got something patched somewhere else?
Yeah, let me double check to make sure that my actual gate to the sample player is not tied to that, because that seems like it is. That's kind of weird, right? We'll actually put this up here. Alright, so.
Yeah, you must have that. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. For some reason, that's triggering that. So that should be earlier gate 1. Okay, so why is gate 1 getting triggered by that?
Oh, so when you were in the scope view, isn't the G thing that you were talking about not going close to? Isn't that maybe you heard?
Yeah, but I changed that. So that was. So I'll show you that again real quick.
I don't understand this yet, so I'm trying to figure out.
Why don't you just use the audio source as your sidechain? That's the other thing. You know what I mean?
No, I am, but
I mean, I get this is the turn. This is the toggle, right? This is the toggle.
This is just to turn it on and off. So again, let me just go. Oh, you know what I did? I screwed up. That's what I did.
Well,
so just to explain what I did.
I was wondering what happened.
I thought I added the gate control, and I never actually added it. This is the original gate control. You catch what I'm throwing? The new toggle's not here. Like, this is the original.
But I thought you made a new one.
I thought I did too. Apparently, I screwed up. Listen. Even idols make mistakes.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Now, I'm gonna move this back. Where it was.
Goodness.
I'm gonna edit it. I jest. So let me just clear this out, and we'll just change it back to gate G. I love how quick naming is on this thing too.
Yeah. Kind of reminds. It has that vibe of like old like Nokia cell phones where you'd like
T9.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd like type in like text really quick by typing the letters multiple times.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get a sidekick screen for mine. You know what I mean? Just like whip it out. Like,
Oh, it's great. Yeah, I missed this. Wow, those were simpler days. Oh, man, sidekicks.
exactly, man.
Oh, I know what I did. Edit controls. I think I must have like selected the actual gate there instead of like adding a new control.
I could have sworn you made a new one though.
Yeah, because we were talking about naming it.
No, I didn't. Insert gate control. There it is. Okay. That was all my fault. I'm a bad person. And you're going to have to like watch this video and just be like, man, what is wrong with that dude? So,
Everything.
Everything is wrong.
It's got to read that in the like .text document you're gonna bundle with the custom.
That's right. Something is wrong with Flux.
When we get to it, I can help answer. I can help hopefully clear up that that map view. Why you'd pick the actual object versus the actual outside assignment.
Right,
okay,
right.
We got there.
Okay, so I have.
So yeah, that's one of my favorite views about the ER-301. They're the favorite new additions, I should say. That was a game changer when that came out. The scope view
kind of looks like the map from like Metroid or something.
Totally, and it's so fluid the way you move through it. And 0.325 was like what we used when we made the custom units when we were in the woods, and that didn't have that. And so that was like, even though like it came out in August, we should have just totally put 0.4 on. Because it would have been so nice to have had to been when we were making our custom unit. We basically the first day we like mapped out exactly what we were trying to accomplish, and so we built the unit the first day, and then just from there on just kept building. And since then, neither of us make music that way anymore. That's kind of speaking to what Neil was talking about earlier. It's just you're not married to one particular workflow. Not even just like within a unit. We're talking like complete workflow. Even if it's your main thing, like you're not stuck to do anything.
And I find that's way more inspiring, right? Because you can just you don't know how you'll approach it until you start making something. And then
I'm gonna guess that we have something minor wrong. I haven't tried it yet, but I was just thinking this patch through in my head, and I think we have something minor wrong. But we're gonna find out whether you're right and I'm wrong. So let's find out. So we'll hit play. So no, I think it works. I think you're right. So let's go to, I'm going to take this way low. Yeah. Yeah, so see, if I do it this way, I can't manually control it, right? And then if I turn it on, you get the side. Well, if I do it this way, you get manual control of both, right? But
I mean, even over a microphone, that sounds really great.
Yeah, okay. It does.
So well, technically it should be somewhat direct audio. So you should hopefully be hearing it somewhat like if I
okay. Word. I'm just yeah.
Okay, so here's the issue that we're running into with doing this type of build, right? So this control is set up currently to where I can manually dictate the amount. What I do is I would have to have the VCA be controlling the amount of sidechain, right? So trigger, you could toggle it on off, but you would also want to have a VCA before that even to do amount of control. Mm-hmm. You see what I mean?
And the VCA is on the end of that one within right now?
So hold on. So you would want it before this one. You would want it here, I would think.
Well, right? Maybe.
Because if you want to have manual control over it, but not have it on or off.
Is there not a problem with unipolar VCAs? I've just been using the bipolar ones. I thought that.
Wait, I think if that has to pass signal on the positive and the negative, then it should be a bipolar. So actually, this is a good example to use that replace feature. You could do that.
That's what I was about to say.
Oh yeah, great call.
A way to do that is just simply click it and hit replace, which is S3, and then bipolar. So now you have that. And your assignments stay the same, which is dope. But still, in order to so for instance, if I do this, okay, so that's there.
You know what I'm thinking, Ken? Like, I think we just have the VCA in the wrong place. Like, where's the actual audio being controlled with that like sidechain process? Like, where's that audio part of it? It's like I think right now the VCA is like cutting off like the CV control of it, but we need to like cut off the audio part of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I see what you're saying. So in that essence,
I think we should lose the VCA where it is. And like, what's that parameter actually controlling?
We could really just move it then, because really you would put it before the envelope follower, right?
Right.
Like, this is the incoming audio from the output of the sample player going into the envelope follower, which then goes out and controls the side chaining.
Right. Okay, I see how you have this.
So
yeah, I don't even stick. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the order's gonna make a difference.
Hey Ken, I'll be right back.
Yep. So you can hold shift and highlight like so, and then I can copy it, and then I'm gonna cut it. So shift. Oh, hold on, that's not shift. Oh. So where am I at? Shift. Go over it. We're gonna hit cut, and then here we could maybe insert it here.
Although it's still sort of blocking signal from the same
Yeah.
So it probably won't make a difference. I think initially I may have thrown us on a loop because I thought you were like sidechaining like the audio and not an actual like CV signal. So that's my mistake, I think.
So the audio is yeah. So we're sidechaining a control.
Okay, yeah. So that was my mistake. I think I've thrown us in a little bit of a.
I think I see where your mind's going with that. But I still think that we could actually do that. We would just want to do it at the end on the inside of the module. So a single VCA would be controlling two modules at the end. Like,
or another thing maybe is, I mean,
controlling two VCAs, one at the end of the sample rate, one at the end of the bit rate.
Or if that on-off control was controlling the upper and lower value of the envelope follower, that might be another way to do it too. But that might take some finagling. That's not worth spending time.
Anyway, I'm gonna get that cleaned up, and it'll be available on the forum.
You know, this was just a test, Ken. I was just fucking with you the whole time just to double check.
Well, this is all, this is all great stuff because this is showing us all, like, you know, there's about 100 ways you can approach any module you build in this thing, and
that's the thing. It sort of gets the cogs turning in your brain, and it follows that spirit of modular where you're just like, I just want to like try stuff.
Exactly. To me, I was telling the guys the other day about it, and we were talking about how some of the guys are just like, well, I just want to create music, and I'm like, well, that's fine. You can just create music, just load other people's modules up, right? And I'm like, I have lots of different creative modes. Some days I want to be a problem solver and a troubleshooter, and like I like puzzling, you know, and I'll build in this thing for hours and not get tired of it. And other days I just want to make music, and guess what? I save everything with top level controls so I can use everything that I puzzled on later on in a musical context, you know. So it's really useful to, you know, in my opinion, when you get writer's block, a lot of times it's because your mind is just working in one lane too much. So if you switch the lane that your mind is working in, it kind of refreshes the other gears, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, for some people that means like stopping playing music altogether and go play a video game or something. For me, it means like, okay, stop thinking in this creative context and think in a more analytical creative context of like, how can I solve this problem, you know, and go that route. So it kind of prevents me from ever having writer's block, you know?
Totally. I feel the same way. There are times when I don't want to necessarily feel creative. And like make something that's musical, but like I can snap into a zone where I'm trying to build a workflow that later on I can get back to and use, or just sample stuff, because that's the beautiful thing. This case is made basically just to manipulate audio. So just being able to set up a laptop, watch some like old public domain movies, and just feed it right into the phonogenes or whatever, or right into the ER-301, and just capture a bunch of content that I later go back and manipulate is also very cool. So in that way, yeah, you're still able to be creative even when you're not feeling like being creative, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like making units.
One thing I do a lot is again, I'm sort of using the 6-track recorder for this, but I'll just sort of zone out and feed an aux, or even just like the Q send from my PM. I'll just like grab a whole bunch of drum sounds all from the modular, from like different modules, and I'll just dump it into this like one big stream. And then in the sample slicer, I'll just add, slice points for each one of those hits. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden I have like this little drum sampler with like all like sounds from all over the module that I can then manipulate and trigger all crazy. And I found the response pretty fast. Like you can almost trigger audio rates and it doesn't blow up.
Well, one of the things about this is actually a really serious topic about samplers in Eurorack that people need to kind of understand. And I know that Steele is going to be able to speak to this as well.
I'm back.
Steele, you're just in time for us to for me to deride some designers.
Okay.
No, so one of the main things about when you're working with samples in the ER-301 and oftentimes with other modules is you have to be aware of gate delays, because if you are selecting through slices of a sample, you need to make sure that the CV selects the slice first, and then you delay the gate until that's selected, and then fire off the gate so that you have the correct slice trick at the correct time. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have that, you'll kind of get inconsistent triggering. You'll get slices that are the previous slice when you meant to trigger the next slice, and that sort of thing. So I can kind of speak to that a little bit. I don't know if I have one in this one. This is a different sampler that I loaded up. But essentially, directly after your gate, you want to add the micro sampler. And me personally, I tend to be using about 4 milliseconds, but different results can come about depending on how complex the patch is as well.
And how fast your sequence is moving. Like Aaron and I in the woods, we would dial that control in sometimes if we were sequencing stuff. But for the most part, we didn't really sequence anything. We just entered it in by hand. So if we were trying to tap in our drums and it wasn't doing the samples right, we knew where to dial in. That's the thing that I'm super glad that the ER-301 came along and fixed that, because previously you had to either use a channel of maths or some way of processing that, a delay module, for instance, like Echophone or something, just to manipulate a gate. So now it's nice to have that integrated.
I used the Moleco Quad gate delay.
Nice, very cool.
That gives me 4 channels of delay that I can just put on the four gates of the Fluxus one, and that kind of solves it for me. And I'll just dial it in with the knobs. It's just,
man.
But I'm sure you guys have encountered this with even just like pitch CV quantizers. Like you got to make sure that on an arpeggiator your pitch is landing before I can't explain what I'm trying to say. I think you know what I'm trying to say.
No, I know it. Yeah, exactly. Because phonogene doesn't work volt per octave.
Yeah.
So like not having the input respond to volt per octave means that it's always going to be attenuated, which means that it makes it ideal for a control module like the either the Rene or anything with analog CV, like the pressure points especially. That's why it made so much sense to have the 2 pressure points and the 2 phonogenes together for me, because I could just set the knobs from 0 to max value, and then I would have CV assignment just ready to go. So if I chop the beat right after the 4 bars or whatever, now that it's split up, I just patch those 2 cables in, the play cable and the organized cable, and I have complete control over the chops basically. But then the other way to do it is just using slide. But both analog responses, and they're not necessarily, they're not expecting a volt per octave signal or any kind of assignment. So again, ER-301 having the 12 ET mode, that you can, it's huge, man.
That's huge.
That in combination with the sample chains, man. for building stuff. Just being able to go through a folder full of samples and trying to build a kit.
And that wasn't there originally. That I think that came out in 0.2. So
yeah, crazy, man.
Like when those sort of got dropped, it was like, what?
Fuck, it saves so much time. It makes it so easy.
So I was doing it the hard way before. I was going in and creating an audio file in Ableton of all these one shots side by side, and throwing that long 3-minute file into the ER-301 and slicing it, and then having all this stuff address it. And then Lee was like, "Yo, you know you could do that from the sample pool." I was like, "What do you mean I can do that from the sample pool?" He's like, "Yeah, just load that whole folder, and it actually lays it out just like that for you, and you can just address all those, that whole folder. You can just trigger the whole entire folder." And I was like, "What? Oh man, it's like life changing for me, man. Oh, I love it. I love it. I'm never selling this thing. At least I don't think so.
My heart's getting a little bit.
Okay, so I'm going to show this real quick. This is just a different style of sampler real quick, if you guys are cool with that.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
So this is a sampler that I built kind of because I'm a Dave Rossum fan, and but Dave Rossum fan not just for the SP stuff. So this is an FM sampler. So the idea is, yeah, he's got the assimilator right there. But he's sending that to me for free.
Oh yeah, because I would.
What?
Because that sounds like my character.
What the what? That sounds normal.
He's sending that to you?
Yeah, no.
I'm not sending it to him.
I'm blackmailing him.
Like, you ain't getting that back.
Yeah, I'm not getting it back.
So, yeah, basically what this is it's literally a sampler that FM's a sampler, right? So what I did is you got your gate on the top, your tuning on the top, and then you have FM amount, FM rate, and then you've got your attack, decay, and release, right? So if I hit play, give you an idea what this thing sounds like. You can hear that, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds great, man.
All right, so check this out.
Just to be clear, what's the source sample? Like, what's the
Your mom?
No, come on, man.
No, it's so they're just
I'm sorry, Ken. Why are you so weird right now?
he said right now, like it's any different from any other time. All right, so what we'll do is we'll go inside the module and we'll see if it makes us happy. So we'll go inside here, right? So here's the very speed player, and then we'll go to the pool, and I have just single cycle waveforms that I'm using. So this,
got it. Okay,
appreciate it.
So I'm using a single cycle waveform. This one's from Adventure Kid, and I have another one I think from my own Fluxwithit ones. And basically, so they're just single cycle waveforms that I put in here, and I just kind of play with the ones that I think sound cool. But what's really crazy is you can use like drum breaks and everything else, and then modulate them from other sources, which causes drum breaks and stuff to sound ridiculous. Sometimes it works, sometimes it sounds horrible. And then you have to play with the settings and your gate settings and that sort of thing to kind of get it right. But to go into it a little bit, so where are we at here? FM amount, FM rate. I think I renamed a bunch of stuff on here recently. So let me go inside. So the speed is where I placed the secondary sampler, the modulator. Okay. So if I go inside of here, we can see we got a variable speed sample player here. And you can actually step through it. I have different slices and stuff that you can step through. That's a really fun tip. Is if you get a whole bunch of single cycle waveforms, you can compress them all into one file, and then you can scroll through that file almost like a wavetable, So you can, and then if you want to get fancy with it, you slice it up, have the sample player play only that slice, and then you can step through the slices and get different modulators that way.
You could also go really weird and throw it into grains and just scrub through the grains.
See, I haven't even done that. Neil's talking that science. All right.
See, that's the danger of this, is you could just keep diving further and further, literally, with grades.
Well, and the cool thing is, like, every stage of it, you can be like, you know, this whatever this process is sounds awesome. I'm just going to save this as its own thing.
Yeah.
That's what I was doing before, and then maybe I'll go in a different direction, right? Like, you don't know which way it will go, but then you can access all of them later, as long as you label, like, consistently label stuff.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm gonna use the Fluxus one real quick. Hold on, let me I'll adjust the camera real quick so people see what I'm actually doing. So, which you can't really see crap, can you? There you go.
Oh, there we go.
All right, so I'm just gonna do a we'll change the we're already on the good stuff. All right, so we'll go ahead and do a random. So random pattern. And then what I can do is, let me set my pitch. So we'll do tuning. It's going to go to a 1. So no FM.
So that's the single cycle waveform right there.
Yeah.
Just a sign.
And then with FM.
There, nice.
And then I can adjust the FM rate.
About the index. You have to... What's the max?
What's that?
I was gonna say, if you wanted to take that even a step further, like, you could even put something within that subchain that would make that modulation not constant. It could be all over the place. You could have
exactly. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll actually sequence the modulator. Yeah. So you can separately sequence the modulator on a separate track, or with CVB. The Fluxus one has CV1 and CVB per track. So then you could throw envelopes or LFOs from CVB and have that modulating on a whole nother level and just get some really crazy strangeness going on, you know?
Actually, speaking of your sampler here, I think it'd be good for the users to see what kind of CPU that's taking on the 301.
So let me zoom in. Ciao. And that's like all kinds of wrong. Let's see if we can.
That's close.
It's good enough.
Hold on. Let me try to adjust a bit.
I'm gonna have to bounce off here in a minute.
Yeah,
this has been really fun though.
Same here, because my dog needs to be walked and he's being annoying.
Now, actually, you know, speaking of that, I've used my cat and stuff in processing.
Yeah, I love it.
Oh man!
All right, give me 1 second.
I jump between the varied speed sample player and the raw player all the time, depending on, like, if I'm not really trying to, like, tax my CPU.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
okay. So yeah. So we'll go ahead and go into admin, and then we'll scroll down, CPU load, and we're at 14%.
Wow, that's nice.
And that's even if you, like, really go nuts with the FM. It doesn't.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, with it running, it's only at 14.
Yeah.
You know?
And that's a great. You could have that running. You could have a completely unrelated thing running.
Well, just to give you a heads up, like, this is just like the shell, right? So, like, what I was actually doing before I was really getting freaky with it, like, just to kind of show you real quick, this doesn't take long at all. And this also speaks to how quick and easy it is to actually build these things. You go inside, here's that sample player, and here's the FM, right? The modulator, right? And then what you can do is you can actually go to that modulator, right? Go inside of here, insert, and then insert a whole nother sampler unit, right? No, whole nother FM sampler unit on top of that, right? So it's literally the exact same thing, just being dumped right on top of it. And then I'm even going to keep the gate, and I'll keep the tune, like, all the same connections and everything, right? So now you've got, like, a whole, like, craziness going on, and all you need to do is add some gain from that, right?
And if you make a custom unit, you can adjust the index of modulation into the 1000%, you know?
That's dope.
So yeah, so now essentially that's like it's like what, a 3 operator FM, you know, FM sampler thing going on like that, and you can keep going down that rabbit hole like that. And again, my CPU now is at 25%.
Nice.
So it's like you could keep going down for, you know, a few more passes of that, and that's an entire module. Like, you know, you could do that way more efficiently by just adding a simple, you know, whatever, you know, simple variable speed player. The raw speed player is even more efficient. You know, you could use that. You could use, like you were saying, the granular stuff, whatever. And
you could use the sine wave instead of the single cycle waveform.
Yeah, absolutely. You could do that. And you know what's even crazier is you use the sine wave, and then you throw the sample scanner on there. And then you put a sample into the sample scanner and freak that.
Here's one for you. You could, on one of those modulators, you could have that variable player reading off a buffer, and then on an unrelated input, you could be recording into that buffer a real-time audio source. And then that variable player would be reading what you just recorded.
See, that's just too much for me right there.
And then it's just,
nah.
I was like, nah, that's like,
just variables, man.
Chicken and the egg. It's like chicken.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just like, I gotta go to sleep after that one. I don't know. If I oh man.
So yeah, I think that's it's probably a good place to end at, right?
Yeah. So
actually, one question for you, Ken. So, like,
sure.
I mean, you've had this module for a while now. So, you know, just from a new user perspective, and after you were playing around with this, how much time do you figure you've put into creating these custom patches here?
That's not a fair question.
Well, if you were to approach it, like if you're like, you know what, I just feel like building something like this, I have an idea.
I'm a rabbit hole guy. So like I love, like, everything that we just talked about is what gets me excited. Like, I use it to, the very first thing I did with it, I've had a Eurorack module in my mind for a long time that I've been kind of begging a couple of manufacturers to make, and they just haven't made it.
But now you have.
Yeah. So like the first thing I did was I was like, I bet you I can make that module in 5 minutes. And sure enough, like I loaded it up. There was a short learning curve of like figuring out some very basic things. And once I figured that out, I was off to the races. The main thing that was irking me was I needed to understand how to do top level controls. Right. And then once I learned that, I got super happy because the user interface for the 301 is actually really good. And a lot of people I've noticed look at the 301 and they're like, oh, I don't know about that user interface. There's no knobs. Like there's just one knob and like these two screens. I don't know about that. The screens are pretty, but I don't know about that. And I'm like, the fact that it doesn't have knobs is a wonderful thing because you can decide to have knobs or not have knobs, and it doesn't take up extra HP, you know? So for me, like the very first thing that I did was I made a 3-band sample rate and bit rate reducer. Like I love sample rate and bit rate reduction. So I did 3 bands where I did a high, a medium, and a low, and I can sample rate and bit rate reduce each high, medium, and low of the EQ separately. And that's like, I've been wanting that for so long. And it was just like, it took me like 10 minutes to code it up and like just to program it up. And after that, I lost my shit. Like I just went nuts, and I've spent hours just kind of like like I've got a ton of different custom units that I've built. Like, yeah.
But and not to scare potential like people looking into this for the first time, you don't actually have to code anything. You're still working in the spirit of modular the whole time.
Yeah.
But if you are a coder, you would really like it because there's that middle layer that's open right now for Lua programmers. And then it's going to be opened up even further.
And that's where the crazy stuff's going to start trickling in.
Exactly. That's going to be amazing.
That's why it was the first module that I bought, because my wallet is ready for whatever devices get written for this thing. And I'm like, you know what? I'll sew into that. I'll sew into this, and I'll kind of reap all that. I'm not trying to be the guy that's building all this stuff. I'll just ask Ken to build it and then buy him drinks.
With the exception of some FM stuff, like I'm the same way. I haven't spent nearly as much time creating units. Most of my units are just involved with workflow and then saving presets so that they're like presets that are with channel assignments. So that it'll say like A, B, C, or D, and that'll correspond to my eloquencer. So it's just like easy to know whether or not my voices are set up. And then also the FM stuff. Like that's the only exception. Other than that, like pretty much all of it, my time has been spent just making stuff with it.
But that's totally cool. Like once you've defined what you need, you don't have to approach it at a blank slate every single time. You just sort of pick up where you left off and make music, right? So
all my quick saves are like getting used up.
Oh, is it the outro music? He's like,
yeah, I'm like, oh man, come on down.
Hey, just as a quick example, somebody was asking how it sounded on vocal samples. I don't have vocal samples on the card right now.
Oh my god, it sounds amazing.
Which, by the way, that's something that maybe next time I would like to have Lee really go through how he has his mod map set up for it, like because he has a setup where can you explain what you do with your controller and how you're triggering things?
I'll get to it next time because like I'm about to have to head out. But yeah, the controller just manages the live loopers or the pedal loopers for recording in real time. My different voices. So I got out of using sequences because now everything's off the grid. And I just tap things in using loopers, and then I save those files, and then I can build and save, say, an intro or a chorus or a verse or whatever, hook, and then save those independently and just keep moving, throw them in the buffer. And then if I like it, I can stitch them all together as in the sample chain later into like a performance kind of thing beat, and then switch between them just with the with the channel, and then you have one on the top channel, one on the bottom, and you crossfade over to the other. But it's a little more complicated than that because it requires getting things like any transition, like a DJ set, kind of like to get beats to line up so that there are elements that make sense between the two things that you're trying to crossfade. Because in the past, when I've performed, it's been super jarring. It's just been like second beat and just throw it in somebody's crowd's face. But now I'm really trying to focus in on how to improve the transition phase. Nice. But that's the crux of it. We can get into it later. This has been a lot of fun.
Definitely will. So yeah, this is something that like I kind of want to make it like I'm not gonna say regular because I'm way too busy to ever do regular streams. I have 3 kids. I've got sound design projects. I've got prototyping projects, all kinds of weird stuff. So like I try to be consistent, but I'm not that dude.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. We should do it. Yeah.
But no, I'm super thankful that you guys were able to come on the show for sure. And like, I just want to kind of keep an open dialogue about 301 building and that sort of thing, because I don't think enough people are fully aware of how fun it is to like have a module that can literally be everything, and not only be everything, but you don't have to do like predator code deciphering to figure out what mode you're in or anything like that. It just, you can make it look how you want it to look, control how you want it to control, all that kind of stuff, you know?
Exactly. And the interface, as you probably got from Ken moving around, is so intuitive that it's hard to move slow once you get into it. Your brain just, where everything is, and you start navigating quickly. You see things in kind of the scope mode, and yeah, I find that it's difficult for me to explain things to people sometimes because I'm just flying through the interface, spinning that encoder with my thumb and zooming in and out by holding buttons. And people are like, oh, wait a minute, what? Oh, sorry. It's so intuitive. You just keep going,
No, I feel you. Well.
All right. Well, listen, thank you guys very much. Does anybody have anything they want to close with?
No, it's just
with my address for Steele to send me that assimilator. But...
No.
Yo, but think about it. If he gets it, that's the quicker he's gonna be able to like figure out how to make a unit that sounds exactly like it in ER-301. Because the fact of the matter is, it's the same computer on the back. It's the fact it's the Womack.
That's actually yeah. So Neil, you have one or no?
Which
Neil has everything, so I gotta ask. You have an assimilator, right?
Nope.
No.
I'm sorry to disappoint, but. Nope.
What are you, poor?
Yeah. Jesus.
No, so yeah, that's one of the things that we noticed is so we looked at the back of the board. It's the exact same computer on the back.
Or whatever.
Yep. Same exact computer on the back. So
Yep.
yeah, it would be wonderful if we had, because the big thing about the assimilator is the code. You know what I mean? Like it's that Dave Rossum magic code where he was able to make that thing scream, and you can get crazy FM and pitch. Like, so the FM that I'm doing on my sample stuff is rudimentary, but the stuff that he's doing is like, you can be pristine and go such wide ranges and at audio rates and, this, that, and the third. Like, it's purposely designed specifically for that,
Yeah, that's
So
kind of why I got it, because it was like, I don't got to build any units or anything in here. I'll just, it is what it is, and it works. It's really simple. It's only 4 pages.
it does have some surprising omissions in it, but
Yeah, don't get me started. But that's
no, we're not gonna go down that road. But hopefully that stuff gets taken care of. But
yeah, hopefully.
hey, thanks again. So again, we got D Steel from MSX Audio, and are you going on tour soon? Like, is there anything you can talk about for that?
Yeah, my band's going on tour.
Can you say the name of the band?
Yeah, I play drums for this band called King's Kaleidoscope, and we are doing our spring tour, and then going to be back home. So yeah, I'm just trying to spend the week chilling, basically, because we're about to be on a tour bus for the rest of the month. So that's kind of where my head is at right now.
Nice.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, and you guys do have a new sample pack out.
Oh, we put out a guitar pack today.
Yeah.
It was really, soulful guitars. It's really fun. There's more sample food for your ER-301s. So that's
exactly.
Yeah.
And
he
Lee
sent me 3 gigs of files that I'm just like still going through. It's amazing. Building kits really quickly using sample chains. Oh, so much good material. Really appreciate that, Daniel.
Anytime.
So Lee, anything you want to close with? Are you going to be out on the sea anytime soon?
We'll talk about like that maybe later. Like we're working there. We're still working on it, man. Still trying to get the house fixed up and so.
Or
huh?
We can find you outside digging trenches somewhere. Like, what's up?
For sure, man. For sure. I'm gonna be fixing my basement up, moving sewer pipe around, all that fun stuff.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. And Neil, what do you got going on right now?
Actually, it's a weird time in my life because I'm writing music for a preschool show that's not out yet, and there's no synths in it. Nothing.
What?
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Those kids are gonna grow up dumb.
That's really it's like egg shaker and piano and marimba. It's really cute, but like I can't use any of this stuff. So it's great because like that show isn't too pressing. So I've had a lot more time lately to do some more creation.
But you're doing a lot of acoustic
amazing.
Sources.
Pardon me?
You're doing a lot of acoustic sources.
Well, it's more sample based because of budget restraints.
Oh, okay.
But at the same time, I'm doing like some synth work on some Netflix stuff that's coming out.
Very cool.
In 6 months, but I can't say what it is yet. So
Fair enough.
I get to play, so yeah, it's all good.
Sounds good. Well, thank you again for coming.
With you.
Same here, man. Same here.
And I'll say thanks everybody for watching in the live chat. Fluxwithit.com. I put stuff up there every once in a while, and I'm doing stuff. So I'm staying busy.
Sweet.
So
nice.
all right, let me how do I end this thing? Oh yeah.